One of the duties of my job was to reach out and raise awareness. And when this whole thing started, there was none. I had to go speak at every group that would have me, and every place that I went to speak, someone or more women would come up to me after to whisper, and they all wanted to tell me about their own experiences or another close family person. And I just got more reports that first few months that we could even take care of because our little volunteer organization was very small. It was a very, very large problem, and it was everywhere.
There were some things happening around the court system that caused a number of us to march around the courthouse carrying signs, and those are things that got attention, and those were things that needed to be spoken about.
I've been involved for 29 years, and I used to go out with my baseball bat and wait with women while their partners were being served with restraining orders, and that was really difficult, but there wasn't anything else to do. It's like, this woman's got to get served, so I wasn't so scared, so I'd go out with my baseball bat down by my feet and sit in the back of the house. And you know, we used to go out and do radical, scary stuff.
The Resource Center has evolved incredibly since I first became part of it. We were in a little house on 11th Street, and we were kind of a small operation. The subject of domestic violence was a tough subject at that point. We had to educate the community, and I think that's been our big goal, is for people to get it.
I think about that little inch-and-a-half office that we started in, and then we moved to a building that belonged to the PUD up on 11th Street. It seemed like everybody wore all the hats. Over the years, it's a joy to know that they've been able to specialize. Those were just dreams way back then.
When I first came to the center, the organization was in a very difficult evolutionary time. From that point on, we began to rebuild. In 2003, we received our first of what we've now had 3 rural grants. And we determined that prevention was really, really critical to everyone, and education. So we began to build our education department and looked at ways to train professionals, increase our own capacity, work with youth and educators, with businesses, with law enforcement, the faith community. We were really looking at ways to involve all those people who a victim might turn to for help.
It's about prevention. The Rural Grant has allowed the Resource Center to deliver these kinds of services, and just the different ways we can engage people has, I think, allowed us to reach more people with the prevention model.
Many people recognized, as we did, the need for a shelter. So we began planning for that in 2003. But a part of that planning was implementing our thrift store. So we opened our thrift store in 2006 with the intention of trying to make a little bit of money to support the shelter. The program has become more important than the revenue.
We have a wide variety of people that work for us at the Wildflower. It ranges from TANF participants, people who volunteer, people doing community service. And we have a big group of folks who have come to the Wildflowers and they have gained recovery, and the Wildflower just really becomes a touchstone for them. Also, we give back to the community. So we donate thousands of dollars worth of merchandise throughout the year to people that are in need.
Through the Jobs program, we are working with Wildflower to place them, to give them that real-world experience. And through that program, we've been able to successfully hire many folks out of it. And that's a great partnership to really give people that chance to try work out.
In 2008, we were able to open our shelter. Prior to that, we could offer 3 nights of safe housing to an individual, and in that time, they not only were expected to recover, but to make a plan for the rest of their life, which didn't work out very well for people. So we now are able to offer 30 to 90 days for women and children at our shelter.
One of the things that's been so significant about the evolution of the Women's Resource Center is the development of the shelter. That has been a wonderful thing because it's enabled women to keep their children at home with them. We would much rather have the children remain with a parent than come into stranger foster care. The shelter has enabled many, many women and children to maintain the family setting and not come into the foster care realm.
In 2008, we received a grant that allowed us to expand our victim services, but also to conduct a very large outreach and education effort. The goal of that was really to work toward creating a community that has zero tolerance for domestic violence and sexual assault. And there were many different facets to that program. We ran monthly ads with community leaders for 2 years. We had billboards in North and South County, a number of newspaper articles. We've had a quarterly newsletter, as well as a new e-letter, and have really done a lot of other professional and community trainings. We've done quarterly forums on a number of different topics that the community has asked for. We have so many great partners in this work. We work with the health department. We work very closely with Community Action Resources, the Department of Human Services. We now have an advocate stationed at their offices. We work closely with the schools, with a number of the churches, with a lot of medical providers. We also work very, very closely with our local law enforcement and with the courts. It just really does take a community.
There's a collaborative effort between the Health Department and the Women's Resource Center in a couple of different ways. One, the advocates come directly to the clinic and are able to see our clients for assistance or support. The other way is, as a school nurse, I work directly with an education outreach person, and we go right into the schools, into the health classes, and teach a curriculum about healthy relationships, prevention of sexually transmitted infections. It's a joint effort, and it just maximizes our ability to provide services.
CARE and the Women's Resource Center have a long-standing relationship of working together. So common things that happen for us is they'll have a victim who comes in here and says, I just really need to leave the county. And they've done the safety plan with the advocate and determined that this isn't a safe place to be. So Community Action is a great place for them to contact and say, we're trying to get somebody out of the county. We need help with a gas voucher or the cost of renting a truck, or they found a place but they need some move-in dollars. Things like that we're able to say, perfect, fits right into the work that we do, and we come together with that advocate and our case manager and put together a financial package that helps the victim get to where they need to be.
The nature of the relationship that child welfare has with the Women's Resource Center is working collaboratively in making safety plans for women who have been victims of domestic violence and their children, to keep the children at home with their mother.
Training the doctors, physician's assistants, nurses, and medical assistants, their training is about medical care. So what the Women's Resource Center has done is working with the staff to identify how can you engage in a conversation. What do I ask? How do I ask it? How can we make sure folks get linked up to resources in the community?
In the last decade, the Women's Resource Center became a partner and worked closely with law enforcement to provide training to help law enforcement officers better understand the investigation of domestic violence. I worked directly with Kathleen and attended trainings with her, and if I needed help regarding domestic violence issues or training, I would give Kathleen a call and she would help us provide that training. Now, every deputy, every officer, every trooper carries the cards with the Women's Resource number on it and provides that to victims of domestic violence.
I think the Women's Resource Center has provided a venue for conversation and education, particularly in the faith community. They've brought speakers here, they've provided community forums that have brought different leaders of the faith community together.
The community trust is because they train their volunteers at a superb level. And so the community knows that because we have an army of volunteers who are either current volunteers or past volunteers. And then the staff here are all very compassionate and very knowledgeable, and they've really earned the trust of Tillamook County.
My name is Norma Obres, and I'm a bilingual advocate here at the Women's Resource Center. One of the issues that I see come up a lot is the language. And when you're already going through a hard situation as domestic violence or sexual assault, there's extra barriers for somebody who does not speak the language. There's even more fear because, there's the immigration status, the fear of making a police report because you feel like instead of getting the help that you need, that you might get arrested.
My experience on the hotline is just extremely varied. Sometimes people call the hotline because they just need a friend to talk to. Sometimes I've gotten calls from the police. I've spent some time at the hospital with hotline people. I've met women in parking lots and strange little corners of town, and so that we can make our connection and do it very quickly, hopefully without someone watching.
Other communities don't have as robust or engaged organization as what we have in Tillamook County, and it allows us to have that positive impact right now, have immediate resources, and to grow with the latest practices, the best partnerships that we can, both at the state and national level.
From a professionalism, administrative perspective, I would put the Women's Resource Center pretty close to the top, and it's because of the leadership. Leadership from two sources. One is their executive director, Kathleen, just outstanding person, and the other is their volunteer board of directors.
I'm aware of the fact that Tillamook has been held out as a model repeatedly for others to emulate, that this is how you build community support, this is how you work with your police department or your sheriff's office. That's a big deal. And I think that that's a demonstration of considerable maturity in an organization. That's a mark of the respect that they have earned for themselves statewide.
The Women's Resource Center has always been a locally funded and locally directed grassroots program. We are a private nonprofit. We depend largely on private contributions and grant income. When I look back on the last 30 years, it's astounding what's been accomplished. Today we have effective victim services, we're doing prevention work. When I look at that 30 years and I look forward at what's possible in the next 30, I believe we can move to a place where domestic violence and sexual assault are not the norm, but instead are the exception. We have a great deal of community support, and that is really what keeps us going and what we hope can grow in coming years.